Hi, I'm RubyPH. I'm a brand strategy and creative director, and I am at the Wolfbound Books studio and zine distro today. I've been making zines for 14 years now, which is longer than I have been a designer. I started out as a graphic designer when I left school, and I've always loved print. I've always loved like vintage advertising. I've loved writing for a really long time. I've obviously always loved design. And through my zine practice, I have been sort of sharing my love for various collections and sets of data and educational material and photography, even though I'm not that good at it. But yeah, my zines kind of encapsulate everything that I'm interested in just creatively, rather than my sort of like more commercially minded professional practice. But I actually didn't get into design school. I had a complete portfolio and they rejected it, and I was like, oh shit, I've got to figure out something else. So I did half of a marketing degree, which I then ditched, and started working full-time at a digital agency. And then from there, I saved up enough money to go freelance and have been building my skills ever since. But I really feel like it's kind of only been in the last maybe 2 or 3 years that I've become really confident in my skills, and I've built up a diverse enough portfolio of work that I'm really happy with where I'm at, and I'm really happy with what I'm doing. As a designer and as somebody that's been in the creative field for a long time, I'm really only just finding my voice and my style in zine making, despite the fact that I've been doing it for so long, which is kind of crazy. It's I think like a nice reminder, maybe even to like past me, to just keep making stuff and not worrying so much about being super consistent in like a body of work or presenting stuff that is like super stylized and branded. I think zine making as a whole is like really incredibly diverse, and everyone that makes zines makes them in such a personal way. So for me, I've really just been trying to lean into what stories I'm really passionate about and what topics I'm really passionate about, and presenting each zine as like a solo piece that isn't having to respond to the other pieces of work that I've made in my now quite big collection of zines. What I have done is I've created one little like visual system that helps to connect my zines together, and that's the little obi strip that you'll soon see. I obviously love data, and I love presenting data in like a cool way. I love infographics. So the little obi strip on my zines is meant to be like a quick access point for understanding what my zines are before you pick them up. I find that even when I'm attending zine fairs and interacting with zines, I can find them just super overwhelming, just because they are so diverse and so personal and so different. So what I've tried to do is give each zine the opportunity to be its own thing, but also tie them together in some kind of visual way with the little obi strip. I spend a long time stewing on certain ideas, like a long time. I'll see something out in the wild, I'll see a piece of old signage, or someone doing something, and something will spark in me, or even just like a social interaction, like with the going zine, like somebody said going postal and I couldn't get out of my head. A lot of the time people will say something or show me something, and it will just sit in my brain long enough that I can see a pattern emerge. And a lot of my zines are about patterns and collections and sets of data, groups of data. So I really love just exploring that and letting it stew. And other times it will be more about the timing of something, like there'll be a new zine fair and I'll want to smash something out before I go. So the Valentine's zine is a really great example of that. I saw somebody else's Valentine's work and thought, oh my God, I should capitalize on that and make my own variation of that. So stuff kind of comes from anywhere, and it's really just about letting those things brew and marinate for long enough that you actually want to make it. One of the other things that I love to do in zine making is look at binding techniques and production techniques and printing techniques, because I find sometimes that I'll see the way that something is bound, and I'll see the way that something is being produced, and it will give me ideas about things that I want to say in that production style. So I always try to bring some kind of new technique into every zine that I make. It's not 100% of the time, but for a lot of my zines, I'll see something that really inspires me, and I'll want to include that production technique in that particular zine. So whether it be a particular binding style or like, you know, die cutting or a certain style of printing, I'll always try and incorporate that. And sometimes that technique comes first and the idea comes later, because that's the way that I want to present something, and I've got to find something to fit it. This is my oldest zine that is still in production. It's, I think, in its third edition. It's called What We've Built. This was a illustration exercise initially that then resulted in an exploration of brutalist architecture in Sydney. I'm super passionate about architecture. I love brutalism specifically. And Australia actually has a really amazing collection of brutalist architecture that unfortunately isn't that well protected, because it's not a visually appealing architecture system and design system. I got the chance to meet Tal Gophers, who was the architect of the Sirius building, which is one of my favorite buildings in Sydney, while it was kind of at risk of being demolished, and while there was a lot of protests going around to save the building and keep its facade intact. It has its own amazing history, and that's something that I encourage you to go and read about. But this particular zine was about documenting what brutalist architecture in Sydney was at risk, what was protected, what was still around. And it's got a little essay in the middle that's like a pop and fold little pop out. And that essay is called How to Be Friends with a Building, and it's just about finding your own connection with architecture and discovering what the built environment can mean to live in a city. So that's my oldest zine. I'm very proud of this zine. It's risograph printed with, this one's mint and pink. Other editions have been dark blue and pink. It was printed just down the hall. I'm going to talk about this one next, Zine Fair Survival, which is also one of my other like older editions. This is also in its third edition of print. This started out as a much simpler zine. It was kind of just like a little, almost like a joke publication about surviving zine fairs and not going insane. Back in the day, back in like 2015, 2016, which is kind of almost a decade ago, there was a really key moment in the year that everyone sort of lovingly referred to as Zine Fair season. It was kind of this like April, May, June period where all of the zine fairs across Australia were kind of happening at the same time. And one of the biggest zine fairs, the MCA Zine Fair, was still happening back then. And so there was this mad rush because everyone was trying to get in, everyone was super competitive, everyone was trying to print at the same time, and it was really hard, it was like really stressful. So I made this zine to help people survive Zine Fair season and not go completely insane trying to make new work, print new work, get into a zine fair, and finally get to the day and actually enjoy it. It's since turned into a little bit more of, I guess, a real piece of educational material. It's got a little bit more about what the zine making process could look like and the production process, and various little tips on like binding and just the presentation of work. And also it talks a little bit to making profit as an artist and being able to actually exist in commercial spaces to sell your work and be able to afford rent. I'm a big believer in artists having an opportunity to make real money from what they do. So this is a big one for that. I printed this at home. I've printed all of the editions of this at home. It's a really nice exercise in working with something that is, I guess, a little bit more constrained. But what I love about this particular zine is that there's so many components. So it's got the inside, which is all color. It's got a nice bright inner cover, and then it's got this like dust cover and a little obi strip. So it's always a massive workout to put these together, but it's kind of like a nice example of how far you can push home printing and what kind of product you can get out of something that is really not designed for like commercial use and commercial production. Home printing, really good. After a friend of mine became a postman, we were all joking that he was going postal, and I was like, what does that mean? What is that as a phrase? And it sort of sent me into this language spiral about all the things that you could be going to do. because there's so many little idioms and popular sayings about going to do this, going that, going postal, going bold. So I tried to come up with as many as I possibly could, and then I sorted them into various topics. I'm going to open the zine so that you can see what I'm talking about. The very first one is states of being, so you can be going well, going pretty good, going with the flow, going together. Each system inside sort of tells a little bit of a story as you read down. Some of them are comedic, some of them are a bit sad. This has been a really funny one. This is risograph printed as well. Some people don't get it. But other people read it and they follow the flow and they see the connections in each thing, and they completely like click in with it. And it's really funny watching people read this and try and sort of make sense of it. But it is silly, it is a bit of fun, but it also is like I guess like a subtle attempt at like telling little stories with language patterns. So it's been really fun sort of presenting this and watching people read it and watching people react to it, because some people really don't understand it, and that's kind of one of the joys of zine making, is that it is so personal and so subjective, and so you can get these really incredible like visceral reactions to your work that I think maybe in some other arts cultures it's less so, that you get to see that like instant interaction and instant reaction with the people that are reading your work. So going risograph printed. This is my Valentine's zine. I got super inspired just off another friend and designer, Isabella Brown. She made these beautiful Valentine's cards, and I thought to myself, oh my god, I have to get on that before I go to the next zine fair that we're due to go to, like right before the Valentine's weekend. This is just like a lovely little, I call it like a mini zine. It's like just a very quick expression of a small topic, and nothing too crazy in terms of like print and execution. But it's really nice to make simple zines. It's also really nice to make zines that are a little bit more affordable. This one I only sell for $6, so I like to have a bit of diversity in the prices that I present to people, because I want everyone to be able to access my work, and some particular zines are much more expensive than others because of the production price. So this one is half Riso printed, half home printed. It's just a single color. We did it across two masters, like a front and a back of an A3 page, and then I just printed the covers on A4 sheets and cut them in half. So this is a really nice, like low effort but still like rewarding little piece of sort of love language literature to enjoy. Very sweet. What's it called? Let's Split a Nectarine. So onto the bigger zines. This is one of my oldest zines as well. I made it, I think, the same year as the first edition of What We Built, which I think was 2018 or 2019. 2018, this is the second edition of this. This was an attempt at a very like educational piece of material. I got really into Instax cameras, which were those little Fujifilm Polaroids. And I couldn't get it right. I'm not a very good photographer. I'm happy to admit it. I do love photography, but I'm just not that great at the like manual. I'm not very good at the manual skill set, like the f-stop, the shutter speed, the ISO, all that stuff it just confuses me. So this was me attempting to learn that process and learn a bit more about why photography works the way that it does. And what I ended up doing was taking a photo with my Instax camera of every possible permutation of photography that you could think of in shooting with something like that small. So I took photos of like certain objects, certain areas. I took portrait photos. I took, let me see if I can find a portrait photo. Hang on. I took portrait photos. I took far away, like sort of group photos. And then what I did was I paired that up with certain times of the day, certain light levels. And I basically created like a big matrix of every possible way that you could photograph something with your Instax camera. And what that turned into was like, kind of like a ready reckoner of the best option for each style of photography and each setting on the Instax camera. And this for me has actually been a really nice like reference point for other photography projects where I've looked back and gone, oh, okay, look, I need to set my camera to this, and I need to like make sure I use the flash and make sure that I shoot in full sun. So it's thankfully still relevant despite the fact that I shot this on 10 Instax cameras ago. And it's kind of like my textbook zine on photography. This is my only zine that is not a traditional print aspect ratio. It is, I don't even know, I think it's like C7 or something. It's a crazy aspect ratio. It was a massive pain to print. I would not recommend doing something like this because of the amount of work that it took to produce this was too much. This is Bath. It is a sort of recipe book with an essay about taking baths and bathing as a practice. I made this in response to one of my best friends having this beautiful bathtub in her old house and never using it because she didn't like having baths. And at the time, the rental that I was in didn't have a bath, and I was so jealous because I love taking baths, and I wanted to help her fall in love with it. So this is like a little recipe book. There's all sorts of ingredients that you can add to your bath to make your skin feel better or to aid in pain relief. It's kind of been like this like ancient global practice. And I took recipes and inspiration from everywhere and created like a little reference book of all the ways that you can enjoy bathing. And I wrote a little essay about like the axioms of bathing as a practice, which was pretty fun. So this one is about to be in its second run of production. It's gonna look different because I don't want to print it like this again because it was too much work. This is my risograph piece de resistance. It is my risograph masterwork, and I say masterwork in that it took many risograph masters to produce. This is like a multicolored rainbow illustration extravaganza. I'm gonna pull out my favorite page. It's a zine about vintage toys. I saw this particular Fisher & Price mini house on eBay and I fell in love with it. I had to buy it straight away. It cost me like $90, which is so crazy for an adult to just be buying a toy to just have on their bookshelf. But this really inspired a whole exploration of vintage toys and sort of old childhood design and the way that toys are put together. I really love them. They're always really colorful. They're always really interesting, like explorations of form and interactivity. So I wanted to make something that was just a celebration of all of those things that I grew up with and some of those cool vintage toys that are really sought after now because of the way that they function or operate. And I wanted to do it Rizzo because I love risograph printing. I wanted to really push my capabilities in making Rizzo masters and putting together something like this big. I worked with Isabella Brown, again, she's a master printer, and we've worked together on quite a lot of my zines. So this one for us was a really massive exercise in patience with the risograph printer because they are very temperamental, and finding out ways to limit the colors and overlap colors to get new ones and you know, get the masters right, get everything lined up. This one also features a die cut out the front on the front cover, which is, I did that by hand. Again, a lot of work. I made 50 of these and I will never make it again because it was such a crazy effort to put together. And it is also one of my more expensive zines, so it's not one that sells very often, but the people that do buy it really appreciate the work that went into it, and oftentimes they're also toy collectors or teachers or people that, you know, get a lot of time to interact with kids. And I wanted something in my zine collection to be really geared towards children, and I ended up turning this into a picture book for my nephew as well, which was really sweet. I wrote like a little story around all the toys that was specific to my nephew and what he likes to play with. So this is a big zine for me. I really love it. I'm very proud of it. Toy zine. This is my most dartery, infographic-y, brutalist design zine. I saw the show Severance, which was made in a lab just for me. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I think it's incredible. The production design was amazing, especially the graphic design in it. It's just, the amount of detail in this show was just, it blew me away. I was obsessed. And I saw in the very first episode of Severance, there was a flowchart that was indicating how an interview should go. And the employee was trying to follow the flowchart, and the person being interviewed obviously was, you know, a chaos agent and wasn't following the flowchart, and the employee was getting super stressed. I'm not going to spoil anything from this show, but I highly, highly recommend you watch it, just purely from a production design standpoint, but also from just the high concept of the story. It's great. But that flowchart then inspired me to write my own flowcharts. I was like, how can we use this format? How can we use this like way of getting from A to B with certain variables? How can we find like new storytelling and comedy and decision making? What can we find within this constraint? And as it turns out, I came up with 20 different flowcharts, and it turned into 2 different zines, because as I made them, these sort of patterns were emerging and these ways of thinking were emerging, and I was trying to also tell a bit of a story with how each flowchart interacted with the next one. So yeah, it became 2 zines, and they have like a little flowchart on the back even about whether or not you're going to buy the zine and why you should or shouldn't. I also joke with people that pick this up that it's really good for people that have ADHD, because there's a lot of stuff in here that's like little daily life decisions that a lot of people with ADHD really struggle with, myself included. So things like drinking water or going for a walk or texting somebody back. There are flowcharts in here that are will help you make those decisions when you get stuck with decision paralysis. They also have some really stupid ones in there, like, are you a horse? You'll have to figure it out for yourself if you read the flowchart zine. And very last, this is my only R18 horror zine. It's called Unsee, and it is a very spooky, cursed collection of images that I found across the internet. This is a really interesting one for me because a lot of my work is, I think, very digestible, it's very accessible, it's very friendly, and I really wanted to do something that was a bit more just sort of left of field and a little bit more like, I don't know, culturally unacceptable. I wanted to do something that frightened me to produce and put out there, and sort of push my boundaries in terms of what I am allowed to make and what I'm allowed to show. I really do try and make all of my work as accessible as possible for a lot of different audiences, but I think this was a really nice opportunity for me to just explore some stuff that I haven't really touched on, and I think it's like still really interesting to touch on. The internet is a crazy place. I grew up using the internet, and I rotted my brain just like everyone else on Omegle and Tumblr and MySpace, and you know, I've seen some crazy shit. So this is yeah, it's a spooky collection. There's no gore or anything like that in there, but there's some just like uncanny cursed images that you know, show up in back corners of the internet that might sit with you for a little while. And it's sealed for people's protection. You can't access the photos because obviously it is 18 plus. So I don't want the children to read it when they come to my zine stall. But yeah, spooky zine. I made this in response to a Halloween zine fair, and I wanted to produce something that was fitting with that theme. And it's been really fun seeing the way that people react to it. Some people get it straight away. They're like, oh my God, yes, I'm a freak. Give this to me. I want to read it. I want to see the spooky images. And other people are like, oh God, no, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to come near it. Just the object itself is cursed. I can't have anything to do with it. It's bad juju. And they won't even pick up any of my other work because they see this first and don't like what they see. The only time the binding has failed, like the little sealed for your own protection, it was this beautiful little old grandma who had come with her grandkids, and I don't think she knew what zines were. She kind of just rocked up one day and thought she'd have a look around. And she said, oh, hi, like, nice to meet you, and what do you make? And we had this really lovely conversation, and she picked this up first. And as she picked it up, the tape broke and it opened to easily the worst image in the zine, and the look of horror on her face, like the blood drained out of her face, and she looked so upset and so offended, and I felt so terrible. And she put it down and swiftly walked away and grabbed her children and sort of ran out of the whole building. And I was like, oh my God, I've just ruined zines for this family. So I have reinforced the tape, and it's now also sealed in a plastic cover so that people can't accidentally pick it up. But if you are 18 plus and you do like spooky stuff and you're a little freak just like me, this is the zine for you. It's super fun. There's so many good zines in this studio. I'm so excited to touch them all. Look, I love collections of stuff. It's kind of my most beloved special interest. So anything that's like a collection that I haven't thought of is always really fun. But I also just love people's crazy research projects and anything that's just a really wonderful expression of self or expression of practice, and also that has cool print techniques that I haven't thought of. I use other people's zines as a massive reference point for my own work. So I'm constantly collecting stuff en masse to just pour over and go through and just find new ideas out of. So yeah, the first thing I'm spotting is Plasticine, which is by like an all-time great, Ashley Ronning. I have followed Ashley since I was in high school, which is so crazy. And now she's one of my friends, which it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be friends with people you looked up to when you were a teenager. This is like one of Ashley's newest zines, and she made it entirely out of plasticine, which is so cool. And I can't believe nobody thought about doing this sooner. Ashley is an amazing risograph printer as well. She's done some other cool she's done some other really cool stuff, like Computer Is My Friend. Yeah, love her work. Also, Isabella Brown, who I will talk about many, many times in this video. She's one of my dearest friends. She's a master risograph printer. We've printed together for many years and do all of our zine fairs together. We always sit next to each other. Yeah, this is Izzy's newest series. It's called Special Interest, and it's for all of her neurodivergent friends to talk about their various special interests in zine form. And this is her specific special interest, which is something about, hang on, I've got to remember what it is. It is the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora. Incredible. Very interesting. Super crazy. Extremely specific, extremely niche. Love that. Love this noodle zine. This is by Natalie, 14th Frame. Again, this is just a perfect example of like collections of data. Like noodle packets have got so much crazy and original graphic design in them. They're such a specific subset of packaging, and just like to document like them like this, just super clean, really well printed, and just like a nice collection of everything that's on the market. Mwah, chef's kiss, beautiful, so up my alley. Look, I am very unfortunately and very embarrassingly a massive weeb. I do love Japan. I've been there many times. Western culture is quite limited in its design formatting, and I think everything, especially when it's tied in with marketing and product design, it's kind of like optimized to the nth degree now. And I think a lot of design work from various parts of Asia, Japan included, but not exclusively, it's just different. It's nice, it's refreshing, it's impacted by different cultural trends, and it's impacted by different audiences. And so it's really nice to interact with that kind of stuff, be it, you know, mass-produced packaging down to super interesting agency work to independently published stuff. It's just, it's kind of a breath of fresh air. And I've always really thought that Japanese design specifically has such wonderful restraint and such cool principles, and it's often really high quality. So it's just stuff that I have a lot of respect and time for. And I also am a massive weeb. I'm a big fan of an art book. Again, I love stuff that is printed, you know, with some kind of cool
print or binding technique in mind. These two specifically, the book block and the book cover, these are really, really incredible reference books. I love the way that this has been produced. I love the way that it's like a cool textbook. Oh, it's upside down. Stuff like this just really makes me excited, because it makes me think about all the ways that I could apply these techniques to my own work. Super, super cool. One of the other things that I want to pick up here to further drive home that I love Japan, this is Isabella Brown's Yamato photography zine. I'm going to very carefully open it because I don't want to break it. Yamato is a luggage delivery company. They're like a national company where they take deliveries, packages, and also travelers' luggage to various ports in Japan. And Izzy meticulously photographed every instance of the Yamato brand that she could find, and I absolutely love this scene. I love photography that spots consistent things in the wild. So things that, you know, people that look out for certain signage, certain branding, things that are, they go unnoticed in everyday life, but they're a massive part of the kind of like, not underworld, but I guess like the background of how things function and the background of how things can work in day-to-day life. And this particular company, Yamato, is a really fine example of that. And Izzy's used one of their packing slips as like a binding cover, which I really adore. I think it's just so beautifully produced, and it's one of my all-time favorite zines, and I think it's in its 5th run of production. So an absolute bestseller, and I really adore it. Yeah. Oh, I'm making a zine about laundromat signage. I've just been shooting it. I've spent the last 3 or 4 days walking 20,000 steps a day, so searching the western suburbs for cool old laundromats. I've got a lot to say on it, but you'll have to wait until the zine comes out. Yeah, I've been RubyPH. This has been the Wolfbound Books studio and zine distribution. This has been really fun. Thanks for having me. I can't wait to read more zines and go to more zine fairs. Bye!